Hello, everyone. My name is Scott Parrish. I'm the Senior Principal Solution Architect at Blackbaud. Thank you for joining Creative Automations for Organization-Specific Issues. I want to introduce you to Jessica White. Jessica is Director of CRM and Database Administration at Opportunity International, has 13 years of experience using Razor's Edge and working in the nonprofit space. She began her Power Platform journey in 2022 and loves streamlining processes and reporting. We will be using the chat for Q&A, so feel free to put your comments and questions in the chat. And Jessica, I'll let you take it from here.
Great, thank you. Let me get my presentation up here. Welcome, everyone. Scott gave a quick intro of me, but I'm just going to talk a little bit more about my experience using Power Automate so far. So I'm sure there's people at any point in the journey of Power Automate on this call. So I have 2 years experience using Power Automate, and it was introduced to me at BBCon, and it did feel overwhelming, like how can I even get started with this? But there's a great Power Platform community that later I can drop the link to that can help you as you get started. So I started just trying to build very basic flows and ran into a lot of issues that I was like, I'm not gonna be able to figure this out. But there were people in the community that I dropped screenshots and they were like, this is your issue. And there's also a monthly Power Automate user call where people can come and ask questions. So I just want to share the information on those resources. So I don't consider myself an expert in this space, but I think I'm kind of a maybe intermediate at this point. But I found there's a lot of ways to streamline things, a lot of different ways. So something I might show, you might think, oh, I've seen someone else do it this way. There's a lot of different ways it can work. Some are more efficient than others, but I just use my current skill set and what works for me and improve my flows as my skill set grows and as I learn more. And each automation frees up a little bit more time for me and allows me to dedicate time to spending more time on the Blackbaud resources, learning the more advanced functions. So our agenda for today, I'm just going to quickly, in this slide, just give an intro to Power Automate if you're completely new to it, you don't even know what it is. A lot of you probably do if you're on this call, but just want to make sure I'm reaching everyone. So Power Automate, there's built-in connectors through APIs. Razor's Edge has a lot of them built out for us so that we can bring data from Razor's Edge to other platforms and vice versa, and also automate tasks related to Razor's Edge. You can also create custom connectors to create connections to endpoints where Power Automate doesn't already have them if there's an open API available. And there was a great session that I attended earlier by Glenn Hudson on how to do that. And I will also talk about that a little bit more in my low-code integrations session tomorrow. So we're going to go through just a few examples of what I've built, the most helpful ones that I've built for our organization that are not things you maybe see in the Power Platform templates. And hopefully this will kind of spark some ideas for you if you haven't used Power Automate, like what tasks at my organization would this be helpful for? So we'll start with Microsoft Teams and Razor's Edge NXT. So the problem that we were faced with at our organization was we have a few constituents that are managed across multiple teams. Our private philanthropy team works in managing it, but also our corporate team that doesn't have access to Razor's Edge and doesn't use Razor's Edge. We'd love for everyone to be in there for the one source of truth, but that's just not the case in this scenario. So we wanted to make sure that both teams had the information that the other teams had so that they had full visibility to what's happening with this donor. So I ended up building a couple different flows, and our business development team, our corporate team, manages everything within Teams. So they have a Teams channel for each different organization that they are working with, and they have a small portfolio. So this is not it's easy to manage because it's not like hundreds of people. So this first flow that I have here is moving information that's posted in Teams over to Raiser's Edge for these constituents. So the flow is triggered when a message is added to the channel for the organization, and it gets message details. And the condition I have here is just checking if I'm the one who posted it or if the from is blank. Because the only reason I would post in this channel would be the automated post to say this happened in Raiser's Edge, and we don't need information that happened in Raiser's Edge that went to Teams to go back into Raiser's Edge, if that makes sense. So from there, if these things aren't true, it creates a constituent action on the donor record that it has a move type of Teams entry so that our private team can see what's being discussed about this donor in the Teams channel. So this next one is the reverse of that. So this is getting information from Raiser's Edge to Teams. So this is kind of my scrappy way of building this. So it checks every day at the same time actions and gifts for the constituent, and it checks if they were added yesterday or today. And if so, then it goes down this path and make sure it's not a Teams entry, because again, we don't need information that came from Teams that went to Raiser's Edge to go back to Teams. And if it's not a Teams entry, it posts the information on the gift or action to the Teams channel so that our corporate team is kept up to date on what's happening as a result of their actions with the constituent. I think it skipped one, sorry about that. Okay, so this is just a little bit more expanding on the Teams process. So we also have it checking the relationships of the constituent, because these donors that I'm talking about are all corporate. So we're also interested in what is happening with the employees as a result of the stewardship that's going on. So this flow is getting the relationships for the organization and listing their actions and gifts, and again checking if they were yesterday or today, and if so, going down that path and posting to the channel. You'll see this condition I have here is a solicitor is equal to no. We don't want any relationships. We don't want the actions or gifts of our fundraisers who are listed as relationships because they're assigned. So that's why I have that condition there. The next example I have is at-door registration for events. So this one was a big one for us. The problem we were faced with was ease of registration for event attendees that show up at the event that didn't pre-register, and allowing TBD guests that we didn't receive info prior to the event. So we try to get as much of that information prior to the event. But we have some of our events that are galas where we have tables where people will buy the table and they don't know till the last minute who they are actually going to have. So it was hard to get that information into RE at the event without registration getting backed up, because we had staff trying to enter it in RE on the iPads, and it was a slow process. So what we ended up doing is building Microsoft forms for each event that were connected to a flow. So we could actually, we brought multiple iPads and we would hand it to the person if they were not on the list, but we knew they were the guest of this person, and have them fill out the iPad off to the side while we continued registration. And this has really helped us with being able to follow up with these event attendees, especially prospects, to make sure that if they didn't give the night of, we give them the opportunity to do that. So a quick walkthrough of this flow, it's checking when it triggers when a new response is submitted to the form. It's getting the details, it's listing the event participants for the specific event, and then it's searching for the person based on the information they put in on the form. And if they are found, it goes through this process of checking if they already are a participant in the system that just isn't marked as registered. Maybe we put them in as invited and it will update them to attended. And if they are a constituent, but they are not in this event, it creates them as a participant as attended. And then if they aren't a constituent at all, if there was no match, it will create them as a constituent and add that participation. Next, we have QGive consent. So QGive is our peer-to-peer platform. It just has all of the functions we need for peer-to-peer, but we ran into a big issue right when we implemented. So QGive forms treat consent as all or nothing. So if someone opts out on that form, it flows into Razor's Edge with all points of contact marked as do not contact. Our Razor's Edge forms are email opt-out only, and that's what we wanted the situation to be, so our fundraisers could still call and follow up with these new people, especially because peer-to-peer fundraising is a huge new donor initiative for us right now. We're really trying to bring in younger donors and fill our pipeline, and a lot of these people we weren't even able to contact because of that, and it was hard to even identify who was getting marked that do not contact and why. Many were opting out of everything without even realizing they were opting out of everything. So we talked to QGive. They basically said they do treat consent as all or nothing, and they didn't have a solution for us. So I ended up playing around. It took me a while to figure it out, but I ended up coming up with an automation that gets these new QGive people daily and checks if their address or phone or email was added today as a result of the QGive entry. And so that's why you see in these screenshots, list all constituent addresses, list all constituent emails, list all constituent phones. And it's checking, okay, was it added today as a result of the QGive? And if so, we want to update that and remove that do not contact. And then at the end, we want to list their constituent solicit codes to see if they already have do not email, because that's the one we want them to be opted out of. And if not, we add at the end just a do not email solicit code. So that's worked out great for us. Again, it's a scrappy automation. I'm sure there's people that are more advanced than me that could do it better, but this has worked for us and has been great. Next, we have our swag qualifiers. So we have a monthly giving program that again, is another big new donor initiative. And we have set in place that once they've given 6 consecutive monthly gifts, we want them to get a promo code to get swag from us. So the problem we were faced with was keeping track of when a monthly giver qualified for this. So at the beginning, marketing was asking me to monthly pull a list of all of these people, and I'd have to build summary fields to see who qualified, and they weren't getting it in real time when they did qualify, like right after that 6th gift, which would be more gratifying. So I ended up building a flow that gets these monthly donors and lists the number of recurring gifts that they have. And once they hit that 6th threshold, it goes down the path of checking this SharePoint list that I created for these people. And it's checking, do they already exist on this list? We don't want duplicates. And if not, then we want to create a line item with their information. And once the item is created, I have a subsequent flow set up to then, when an item is added to a SharePoint list, email the marketing manager with the details of this person so they can immediately send out that email with the promo code. Next, we have reviewing unassigned $500 giving or 3+ rating. So we have a new donor process that happens, assignment process that happens twice per week. The problem we were faced with was quickly identifying when an existing donor who's not a part of that process who's not already assigned to one of our fundraisers made a significant change in their giving that would qualify them to move up to a mid or a major rep. Or if they gave a gift that was under $500, but we now see they have a 3+ star rating in the system. We wanted to flag that for the fundraiser assigned to making assignments, so that we would get them stewarded and assigned to someone quickly, rather than maybe in 3 months, someone saying, oh, look, this person increased. By the time you reach out, you've kind of lost that timing. So these flows identify the donors and send an email to the fundraiser in charge of assignments to review. Next, we have 3-month follow-up calls for our mid-level donors. So our mid-level fundraisers have very large portfolios with new people added daily. And we needed a way to let them know when it's time to follow up with a donor and make the next ask. So the way this flow works is every day it lists the mid-level donors, when their first gift was, and if it has been 3 months, it adds them to the SharePoint list. And again, it checks to make sure they're not already on that SharePoint list. And then there's the subsequent flow that when an item is added to that SharePoint list, it checks which fundraiser they are assigned to and emails that fundraiser and says, hey, here's this person's first gift. It's been 3 months, follow up with them. And then they mark it as complete on the SharePoint list. The next one we have is peer-to-peer relationship tagging. So the issue that we were faced with is quickly linking peer-to-peer givers to the peer-to-peer fundraiser who brought them in. So when we had all these new donors flowing in that were giving to our people who ran the marathon, they were getting assigned to fundraisers and they were saying, I don't know who brought this person in, and I want to be able to reference that in the conversation. So at first I started with exporting that information with a custom field that was on the gift and then importing it. And I couldn't keep up with it. I'm a 1-person department. And it was too much work to even prep and find who I needed to import. So this flow notifies me when there are new relationships that need to be linked and sets them up in a SharePoint list that I can quickly format for import daily. So I get an email whenever someone new is added to that list, and it gives me a link to my SharePoint list. I filter it by what's not already marked as completed, and I export it, and it has the system record IDs and everything I need to go ahead and import those relationships. And you'll see in the flow here, I have first gift appeal included because we also have a relationship that we like to mark as introducer to our organization. So if their first gift was a result of this peer-to-peer relationship, we mark them as the op introducer as well. So next, I have soft integrations. Wherever possible, I'll use webhooks or custom connectors to access data from other systems to move it into Razor's Edge. But there are certain scenarios I've run into where I'm not able to do that. It's just too complex. So the example I have here is Zoom. So we run all of our virtual events through Zoom, and we do not have an integration with Razor's Edge. And our fundraisers want to be able to go into their source of truth where all the information they need on a person is there and see who has registered and who hasn't to drive people to these different events. So for a while, they were sending me an export. The events team was sending me an export from Zoom once a week, and I was updating that, and it just wasn't working for our fundraisers. We needed something that was quicker. So what we ended up doing is building a flow that can work off the same spreadsheet format each time. So every time our events team sends the spreadsheet in this same format, and I built a flow off of it to get that table and list the event participants, search for them if they're in the system. If they're not, add them, mark them as registered. And if they are, go ahead and check if they're already invited, change them to registered. And if they're not in the event at all, add them as a participant as registered. So this is something I can quickly run every day because it's already all built, it's already formatted. I click run again every day when I get the updated spreadsheet. So, I mean, it'd be better if I could have it completely automated, but this is, in the past, what I would have to do is query that list and see who is in the system, prep import sheets. This just streamlines that process a lot for me. And like I said, I have another session tomorrow on integrations where I'll talk a little bit more about this and also talk about webhooks. So I wanted to make sure to leave plenty of time for questions, and I also talked really quickly, but happy to address any questions that people have. Let me pop over to the Q&A. Let's see. I've heard SharePoint as part of various flows through this conference. As you describe a SharePoint list, what is that? That's a great question. So we use Microsoft for everything here, and within OneDrive, you can go to SharePoint lists, and you can create a list with all of the different fields that you are going to have move over through your flow. And then there's triggers available based on different actions that happen in those SharePoint lists. And again, I'm sure that some of the more advanced people in Power Automate could better explain. So the Power Platform, if that doesn't suffice as an answer, the Power Platform user group community would be great to better explain. What peer-to-peer software are you using? So we are using QGive. The reason for that, we were using JustGiving, but the customization that we needed for our communications wasn't really available in JustGiving. So that's why we're using QGive. Some of these flows seem to be conducive to the RENXT workflow. Is there a reason why you chose to create an automation rather than use the workflow included in RENXT? Yes, some of these definitely you could do in NXT. Some of them, the intricacies of like the conditions, I didn't go into each of the conditions I have set up, but some of the intricacies of the conditions are not available within workflow. Like one of them, I have a lot of formulas set up, like one to say 3 months. The 3 months one that they gave less than 3 months. I have a lot of different formulas set up that I can quite configure in the NXT workflows. Also, our fundraisers, as much as we push them to use the system, we do run into not a lot of them are good about staying in the system, and a lot of that would be adding an action to their record. And they do much better with getting an email of what to do. So that's part of why we did that as well. Have you considered automating the promo code email itself? Yes. The platform that we use, and I can't remember what it is because marketing manages it, but we talked to their customer service, we talked to their development. They didn't have any way for us to automate that process with their platform. So we have talked about switching platforms, but it's a very affordable platform. And this, the automation that I built works for our team within our budget. On the Teams message related to these donors, how did the Teams user specify which constituent to update with the action? So each Teams channel we have set up is for a specific record. So all of my flows are built with that system record ID inside of them. So and the great thing is once you build these once, you can save as and just each time replace the system record ID with the channel for that specific donor or organization. So it's all built within my flow because they have separate channels for each of these constituent records. That makes it easy. I think I got everything in the Q&A. I don't know if there was any in the messages that didn't make it to the Q&A. Let me see if I can. If I can see those messages here. Scott, do you know if you're, oh, there we go. Now I've got them flowing over. Okay. Do you have a flow that can create a list of actions from RE that is due at the end of the month for a specific fundraiser and send them automatically? I do not have a flow built for that, but you could build that. That's definitely possible with Power Automate. That's a great idea. Do your different flows add actions to RE is a step in light of the giving officers being adverse to entering the actions themselves. So I did have the actions added to RE at the beginning. The problem was I would say with my skill level in Power Automate when I built this, I have it set, one of my conditions is if the gift was modified on or after a specific date, because date added didn't work for us because of the delay in gift entry with our gift processing team. So what was happening is there was some duplicate actions getting created from my flows. And so that's why I have it flowing to the SharePoint list, because it can check, okay, does this already exist here? It does. I don't want to create another action. So that's why I have it set up for SharePoint rather than an action in NXT itself, because it was causing clutter in the system with the way I had it configured. How many individuals support these automations? Are you able to collaborate in Power Automate? So my organization supports the automations because it's making their work easier. So I kind of just started working on it without even talking to anyone, because I went to BBCon and I was like, okay, there's a lot of things that take me a lot of time that I could at least make quicker. And started doing it just for my own processes that didn't affect anyone else, and started explaining those and how I was improving those. And our fundraisers would be like, well, how could you streamline this process for me? And so we do collaborate in that way. Once they found out what I was doing, they were asking what's possible and what can I build to streamline their work. And there's a lot of other stuff I'm working on right now that hopefully I can share at the next BBDev days that's a little bit more complex that we're working on. Would love to know if you have these flows available as template. I have not posted any of them as templates, but if there's anyone's really interested in, I'd be happy to share. I think I've got my email on the screen there, but I'm going to go ahead and also drop my email in chat if you are interested in any of my flows. Do you have an automated giving workflow to bring in and create a batch as well? I do not. If that's something you're interested in, that would be a great question to ask in the Power Platform community. Let me drop the link for that as well. 1 second. Okay. Thanks. Oh, we got a new one. We're new to Omatic Cloud, primarily using it to import event participants from a spreadsheet. Jessica, you just described how you were doing this through an automation. I'm curious, has anyone seen automations replace the need for Omatic? That's a great question. I went and talked to Omatic when I was at BBCon, and I do think it's a very similar process what my low code integrations are, but I think that it's great, especially if you're not familiar with Power Automate or feel intimidated by Power Automate, that they set up that process for you. But yes, it is my flow is very similar to the Omatic process, with the same format each time, and then it's running and checking if they already exist and updating that. And I'd also encourage people, another way that helped me get started was going into the templates that are available and just looking at the different formulas that are written into it and the conditions. The connectors themselves are pretty simple to understand. It's more understanding how to get more complex with checking different conditions and using filter arrays, and just seeing how other people did that. When you know what the end goal is, you can kind of work off of that. And let me see if I have any other questions here. All right, I think I've addressed everyone's questions, but I'm gonna stay on mute and off camera and just keep an eye on the Q&A in case anything comes to mind, or if you're working on a question right now, and I'm happy to answer. But thank you all so much, and hopefully this will be helpful for you. Oh, I do see one more question here. Did your organization already have Teams and SharePoint built out before you started building flows? Only our business development team was using Teams. So the first thing that our chief technology officer actually came to me and said, "You're the Razor's Edge expert. How can we make sure we're getting information in Teams from Razor's Edge for our people that don't use it?" And so I asked him to add me to all those channels so I could do some investigating, and was able to figure it out. And then SharePoint, no one was using SharePoint lists. I didn't know if we even had it, to be honest. I just went into our OneDrive and looked around and was like, oh, we do have it, and kind of chat GPT'd my way of how to set up a SharePoint list. And then once you do that, there's connectors built in for the SharePoint lists that make it super simple. Are you using Power Automate to fix anything in your spreadsheet? Not to fix anything, but to manipulate some things, yes. So one of the low code integrations I have is with a custom connector to Cvent, but the way the data comes over is just name and not broken up by first name, last name. So I had to build a formula in Power Automate to separate that so that I could then plug in first name, last name, email to the search for a constituent in Razor's Edge to make that work. So you can manipulate data in the spreadsheet. Do you by any chance have a flow that would create pledge reminder for installment due by month to send out? I have that on my list to work on. So that's a great idea. And if I get it built, I will share it in the community templates. Right now I have a Power BI report that our fundraisers are directed to make sure they're sending out those pledge reminders, but I'd love to automate it even further. could you share the template with the spreadsheet manipulation formula? Let me, again, if Jess, if you could email me, I will send that to you. I will eventually get that template posted, but I can email you that. Put in my email there one more time. And I think we've addressed everything. I saw a question about the feedback survey, but I think Scott will take care of that. All right, thank you all so much. And again, I'll stay on and I'll pop back on if any other questions come through. I see another question about data from web batches because load defaults is not available in manual. I have not created that. I have created I have created a flow that automatically adds some gift custom fields that are all related to a certain funder appeal. I can't remember which one, but my automations have all come from specific requests, mainly from our fundraising team. Our finance team isn't so much looped into this process yet. I have kind of given them a brief overview, but I've asked them to let me know what automations would be helpful for them. And this example that you mentioned here, Salvador, sounds like a great one, and they have mentioned that problem. So I'm actually gonna take note of your question there and see if that's something I can work on, because I know that's a problem that they have. Great idea. Debbie, I do not have a flow that helps automate tax receipt. Again, any of these ones that I don't currently have, and if you're wondering if they exist or if anyone has a template, I would go to that Power Platform community and make a post, because someone might have that and just might not have posted. I think some of us don't think our automations would necessarily be helpful to a lot of other people. So that's why I haven't posted a lot. I felt like they were very specific to my needs. So there might be, someone might have that built that just hasn't posted it. So I would definitely recommend putting that out there.